And so welcome everyone. Like I said, my name is Wallace Johnson with Families Helping Families in Southwest Louisiana. And with me today, we have Dr. Ashley Volion. She's our guest speaker, and she's going to be talking about voting rights for people with disabilities. Um, and so we're glad you're here. And Dr. Ashley Volion is with the Louisiana Disability Rights, um, and she's a policy analyst there. So we are very glad to have her here to talk about voting rights for people with disabilities and some changes that are coming up with that. So welcome, Dr. Ashley Volion. You're welcome to get started. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Wallace and Melinda, for everything you all do. And thank you for the invitation for being here because we're in the thrill of the election season. So we need to make sure we know what to do because voting is how everyone gets their voices heard. So I want to make sure that each and every one of you get your voices heard at the at election day or before if that's what you choose to do. So we'll get started. And before I get started, I just want to let you all know that I really want this to be a conversation between us. So if there are any questions while I'm talking, Wallace will be monitoring the chat and letting me know. So be sure to ask any and every question that you may have. So first off, to start this off, we're gonna talk about the Help America Vote Act of 2002, or you might hear it referred to as HAVA. And that ensures that every citizen in the United States has the right to vote in whatever way they see fit. And this act states that every eligible citizen has the right to register to vote. All voters have the right to an accessible polling place. All voters have the right to cast their ballot privately and independently, which means that every polling place is required to have at least one accessible voting machine with accessibility features. And I'm going to talk about what those accessibility features are further on in the presentation. And you must be able to safely enter and exit your polling site. And if you're not, please do call Disability Rights Louisiana so that I can take note of that. And then, as a person with a disability, you have the right to assistance in the voting process. And you have the right to choose how you vote in person or on election day or during early voting or even through a mail in ballot. But before we go on to things, accessibility issues around voting, I want to cover several things that took place or went into law recently as of August 1st of this year. If you need help filling out a voter registration form, the new law says that the only person who can help you register are an immediate family member, a person who is not an immediate family member, such as a friend, neighbor, caregiver, or other person only, and please take note of this, only if they have not helped someone else in this election cycle already of register of voters employee, the Secretary of State or an employee from their office who performed election duties, or any entity or individual that is required by law to perform voter registration activities or at a voter registration drive. If you need help filling out your absentee ballot that will be turned in by mail, the new law says that you may only get help from, again, an immediate family member, a person who is not an immediate family member, such as a friend, neighbor, caregiver, or other person only if they have not helped someone in this election cycle, or an employee of the Register of Voters, or an employee of the election division of the Department of State. If you live in a nursing home and are enrolled in the nursing home early voting program, the new law gives you 2 more weeks before early voting begins to cast your vote during the election period. If you are voting with an absentee ballot by mail, to deliver the ballot, you must either deliver the ballot yourself by hand to the mailbox, postal service, or registrar's office, or have an immediate family member deliver it to the mailbox, postal service, or registrar's office for you, and they will have to give their name and address in a signed statement, or a friend, neighbor, or caregiver, or other person only, again, if they have not already helped someone submit their ballot in the current election cycle. Or a person, organization, or entity can only distribute an application form for an absentee ballot to a person who has directly requested one. After the laws go into effect, it will be a punishable criminal offense to help more than one person with any of the actions that I mentioned, if they are not an immediate member of your family. And if you have any questions about any of this, please email me or call our office at the number listed, which Wallace will send out this information after the presentation. So now that we have that covered, and that was a lot, so if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. But often when I do these presentations, I get the question of why does voting matter? And why it matters is because these elected officials or people wanting to be elected are people just like you and I. They may know about some issues, but often they don't know about everything. So we can get overlooked. And according to a report from the Center for American Progress, nearly 62% of voters with disabilities casted a ballot in the November 2020 election, compared to just 56 in 2016. So those numbers are going up, so let's keep them on the rise because you must make your issue known because they're important to you and they can greatly affect your life. And so another question that I get is why don't people with disabilities vote at a higher rate? And among 108 million voters without disabilities, 10.2 million lived in a household with a person with a disability. Combined with voters with disabilities, there were 24.5 million voters in disability households, equating to 20% of all voters. And the most common reason expressed for not registering to vote among both people with and without disabilities was a lack of interest in the election or politics. And about 1/4 of people with disabilities give permanent illness or disability as a reason for not being registered. So, quite a lot of people think that they can't participate because of their disability, but there are accommodations in place to help you in that process. So hopefully this presentation will make it easier for you guys when you go to vote. So if you're eligible to vote, you must meet the following criteria. And that is you must be 18 years old or older. You must be a resident of Louisiana and a citizen of the United States. You must live in the parish where you're registered to vote. So, I live in St. John Parish. So that means I can't try to vote in New Orleans or Orleans Parish because it's not my parish of voting. You must not be under the order of imprisonment for a conviction of a felony. However, if you have been released from incarceration for 5 years, you can register to vote even if you're on probation or parole. And you must not be under a judgment of full interdiction or limited interdiction with suspension of voting rights. And if you have questions about that or don't know if you are, you can always call someone to find out if you're eligible or call me. And so there are several ways that you can register to vote. Either you can go online to the Go Vote portal, which I'll walk you through in a second. You can do it through in person. You can do it in person through a register of voters location. And that link will pull up every parish and all the locations available, or you can do it by mail through the Louisiana voter registration application. Also, at many government entities and nonprofits, they can register you to vote. So I just wanted to show you guys really quickly what it looks like, what the voting portal looks like when you register to vote. So when you go to the Go Vote website listed above, you'll have a little drop down menu, and what you'll want to do is click that you want to register to vote. This is also the same link that you'll go to if you want to change anything on your voting registration application. But you go through here and it's pretty simple, just a few clicks. And you can get it all done that way. I think I've just had to change parishes recently, and it took me about 10 minutes to do. So it's not a very lengthy process. So the next question that voters often have is, how can I cast my ballot? And there's several options. We don't have a curbside voting, but we have either you can vote through election day or on election day. You can do early voting or absentee by mail. And for the upcoming election, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And during early voting, that usually occurs 7 to 14 days before the election. And I'll have a whole slide of the list of election days on the next few slides. And then we have the absentee by mail program as well. And typically, that's only available if you cannot vote in person. However, in Louisiana, there is a special program for people with disabilities and seniors. And I can state for the record for myself that I participate in the absentee by mail program because it's honestly just easier for me to do it that way. That way, if I don't have a ride for one reason or another, or if it rains or anything may happen, maybe I can't vote that day. I always advocate for people to be signed up for the absentee by mail program because it really is a game changer. And that doesn't mean that just because you're signed up for the absentee by mail program that you have to utilize that and that alone. So a little bit more about the absentee ballot program. People with disabilities are those 65 years of age or older can register for what's called the permanent absentee ballot program. And what this means for people that are signed up for it is that ballots are mailed automatically or by email through an email secure link before each election. And I would say I usually get my email link about 3 weeks before early voting, give or take. And the only way that you are not um given that email link is that if the ballot is undeliverable, the voter will be removed from the program. But that's the only way. So you don't have to sign up each time. And you can sign up through the Go Vote portal again. And honestly, our Go Vote portal is really good and has a lot of different options that I'll walk you guys through as well. Or you can access an absentee ballot form at the link in the PowerPoint that you can mail in as well. So I just wanted to walk you guys through how I go about getting voter information. Because even though I deal with voting all day, every day as part of my work at Disability Rights Louisiana, I still like to fill out my ballot beforehand and bring it to the voting booth with me when I choose to vote in person because honestly, I get really nervous when I'm in the booth about taking too much time, even though we're allowed up to 20 minutes. It just makes the voting process easier for me. So, like I said, you go to the voter portal, but oftentimes I find the voting portal kind of tedious to navigate to. So what I usually do is type in find my polling place Louisiana, and the voting portal will be the first thing that pops up. So this is what the screen you'll get to when you open click on that link. And then what I do is I click on search by voter. Once I do that, I'm able to fill in all my details, all my information, and then press submit. Then you'll see several things in this voting portal. Um, it, you can find your early voting location. You can find your election day voting location. You can do a sample ballot, which I find the most helpful because the sample ballot you can click your choices and then either take your phone with you in the voting booth or print out a copy and take that into the voting booth. Um, you can do your, you can register to vote, you can print out your registration card, you can register for your absentee ballot, and you can also find election dates. So this is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And you can also find out the status of your registration. So if you miss several elections and are unsure if you got kicked off the voting roster, just double check that you are registered. And that's what I encourage people to do all the time, is to double check that they are registered, especially before this very important election coming up. So there's several ways that I tell people how to find the candidates that they trust, because with all social media and everything going on, it's kind of hard for people to sift through all that information. I know I get really overwhelmed. So oftentimes, several organizations will do candidate surveys. You can search the internet for information from groups you trust. Talk to people you trust, and also you can, on that voting website, you can look for candidate voting records and position statements. So usually people have their own pages, especially if they're running for something. So you can look at their past legislative pages or anything like that. And then newspapers. I know now we have digital newspapers primarily instead of written ones, but oftentimes they do candidate profiles as well. So also, one thing that I like to do as a voter is I like to have the amendments or what the candidates are about explained to me in layman's terms. Because sometimes, even though I read all the legislation and I'm very good at it at this point, sometimes I get a little stumped. And so you want to find nonpartisan groups that'll provide you just the facts or the information about the amendments on your particular ballot. And so there are three groups that I direct people to usually, and that's the Public Affairs Research Council Guide, the League of Women Voters, and the Power Coalition. And there may be one or two others that are out there that I didn't include, but those are my three three organizations that I go to. So before beginning this work in voting, I didn't even know there were any accommodations available to people with disabilities in the voting booth. Because I came from a very small town, and so voting was particularly easy. People would just, help me get into the voting booth or help me with whatever I needed. And my needs weren't that extensive. And so after I began the work, I found out there was a lot of accommodations that I could ask for if I needed them. And those accommodations are you can ask for a magnifying glass to magnify the ballot or other materials. There are audio voting attachments for all voting machines so that voters can listen to the ballot and vote using a keypad. So this is useful to people that might not be able to see well, or people that cannot read well. They might ask for this as well. Um, Voting machines can be lowered or heightened for wheelchair users to use the voting machine independently. People with visible disabilities are allowed to go to the front of the line, as well as those with a current mobility impairment ID. If you do not bring someone with you, you can ask the election officials or poll workers for help or assistance. People with disabilities can have up to 20 minutes to vote, up to 7 for the general public. Voters can bring their own signature tool, headphones, or flashlight. And like I said, you can even bring your ballot or your cell phone with you. That way, if you have your answers or your voting key, as I call it, you can bring that with you. And to request these accommodations, no proof of disability is necessary. So anyone can ask for, let's say, a magnifying glass. So when it comes to bringing people into the voting booth with you, in order to receive assistance, you must sign or mark your mark on a statement saying that you need assistance in order to vote. But oftentimes you'll be able to do this through the registration process. And the person assisting you will also sign a statement saying that he or she cast your vote according to your wishes. And if you don't bring someone along to assist you, a poll worker is required to provide you with assistance. So I just wanted to bring up several dates that are important to this upcoming election. The deadline to register to vote in person, by mail, or at the OMB office is October 7th. The deadline to register through the Go Vote online registration system is October 15th. Early voting is October 18th through October 25th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The deadline to request an absentee ballot is November 1st by 4:30. Other than military and overseas voters, you can request an absentee ballot online through a voter portal or in writing through your register of voters office. The deadline for a register of voters to receive the voted absentee ballot is November 4th by 4:30. And on election day, which is Tuesday, November 5th, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Do you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns?
In the chat box, someone commented when you were talking about the new laws that came into place on August 1st. They said that sounds like voter suppression.
It is voter suppression, and there is um something being done about it that is in the process, but will probably they won't go into effect or nothing will be done for this election. So
And then
we'll still have to abide by those
and then
laws.
someone says, how does one request an absentee ballot by mail?
Um, it's in that link in the PowerPoint, but I'll send it to you guys after this presentation. I can
And then
take
I have a question too. Is
yeah.
voting by absentee the same thing as voting by mail, or is it different?
No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. They just call it absentee ballots because you don't go to the actual polls. But I want to make this very clear to you guys that even if you're signed up for the voting by mail or absentee ballot program, that if you choose to go in to vote on election day or during early voting, you can do that. You're not stuck into the absentee ballot. If you want to go in, you can. You just can't cast your ballot more than one time. So if you choose to cast your vote during election day, you can't send in an absentee ballot as well.
And when you mentioned about getting a link, when you get that link, that's just a sample ballot, right? So you can use, you're actually not voting with that, you're just seeing what's on the ballot for
No,
information.
thank you for that question. I didn't mean to confuse you guys. So if you're signed up for the absentee ballot program, you can choose whether you want them to send you the ballot by mail or through an email link. If you choose that you want your ballot sent by an email link, then they'll send you the actual ballot through your email. And that's the actual ballot you vote with. And what happens is that you click on that email link, you make your choices through through online or by printing it out, but you do need to print it out no matter if it's an email link or not. You need to print it out and then you need to get a witness to sign and you need to mail it back to them. So, no, it's not a sample ballot. The email link is your actual ballot. What is a sample ballot is what you get by going to the GoVote website.
Okay, so if you're voting by the email way, you vote that way, but you got to print it out and then you got to have someone sign it or you sign it and then you bring it in, right?
So you put it in your envelope and there'll be an address for you to mail it back
Okay.
to them. Or you can bring it to a registrar's office.
So you
Whatever.
can't just send an email and think you voted, right? You can't just do that.
No. You have to, well, you have to open, you can't just send the email. You have to open up the secured link and make your choices and print it out and either mail it back or hand deliver it.
Okay. So it comes electronically, but then you must either print it and then fill it out and then mail it or bring it in person.
Yeah, so no matter what, you have to print it out, get a witness to sign it, put it in the envelope and seal it, and then either mail it or bring it in person.
And then someone is asking, do you get confirmation when your mail-in is received?
Yes, you do. You can check the status through the GoVote website, through the voter portal.
And if you bring it to the post office, can you request they give you something saying that you dropped your ballot off?
I I've never done that, but I wouldn't see why. And you could do it through certified mail. That way you would get a receipt. So that's a good way to do it.
Okay. And if anyone else has any questions, I could let you talk or raise your hand, let me know, or put something in the chat box. If you got a question, you can put it in the chat box or raise your hand and we'll unmute you or see if we can let you talk or we'll try that if there's any further questions. Okay, I got a hand raised. Let me see if I can allow them to talk. Okay, I'm asking them to unmute. Okay. Can you talk, April?
Yes, I need some clarity on something. Say for instance, I have two people that live with me that have disabilities. So according to the new law, I won't be able to help both of them to fill out their votes on the
No,
ballot.
no, ma'am.
Okay.
Even if she lives with them, like as a family member?
Um, that let me double check and I'll get back to you. But
So,
I believe the answer is no.
okay.
But I will check and get back.
Okay.
But if there's an older adult in the house, they could probably help, right? Another one?
Yes.
Well, here's the deal for me. I had the older adult and the young adults. I need help, and in the past years, I've helped them, with that. So that's why I put in a chat that sounds like voter suppression, because now you're going to have to find somebody who has not helped somebody else. It's
I
just yeah,
I
it's real. Thank you.
thank you, April. And I'll make
Yeah.
sure to get back to Wallace to get back to you about
And
it.
if anybody has any difficulty with voting, on election day, I know Louisiana Disability Rights has Louisiana has a hotline. It's actually
Yeah,
their toll-free number, right, Ashley?
correct. And this is the number right here.
Yeah, it's on the screen, 1-800-960-7705. Or if you find your public place is not accessible or something, and then you could call and report it. But there's usually a election official that you can report that to too, right?
Yes, there is. But I helped to run the voting hotline on that day. So if you call, I might be answering your call or one of my colleagues. Um, so we'll make sure that's handled as well.
Um, okay, April, I see your hand raised again. Do you have another question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my other question is, say for instance, I bring two people with me, which is, you know, the two people that live in the household with me. Before I would go in and help, so I'm gonna say my son, you know, to cast his ballot, and then I would help my mom to cast, you know, go in there to cast her ballot. Will I still be able to do that?
I-
You're
Let
talking
me
about for yourself, April?
know.
No, I'm talking like my, say for instance, when I bring my mom and my son, you know, to vote, I actually go in the booth with him. I hadn't had any problems with that previously. I'm asking, will I not be able to assist them?
Let me get back to you on that, April. I'll get back to you within the hour on that.
Okay,
Because I want to double check. I don't want to give you the wrong information. I
okay,
don't I don't think you can, but you might not have a problem due to the fact that you are a family member. Um, but let me double check that.
okay. And I'm just asking so I can be prepared and not shocked when I you know, when I go there. So I
No,
need to fit.
in April, can you leave your email address for me in the chat? That way I can get back to you directly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
No problem.
And am I correct, Ashley, with this, that you can go prior to an election? You can go to the registrar's office or go online and request that you need assistance in voting ahead of time, so that when you actually go to vote, it's kind of marked by your name, right, that you need assistance.
Right. You can put that on your registration.
Okay.
So I would try to do it ahead of time before the election, make sure that you got that, uh, let the registered voters office know that you need that assistance for them, so that it
Okay.
could be in the books, or in their system, that it's needed or requested.
That is
Okay.
a that is a good thing to do, but for her question, for April's question, it wouldn't matter. Her major concern is gonna be whether she can help them, or
Right, more than one person.
yeah. So that's the major concern, which I'm gonna find out. I think you may be okay since you're a family member, but like I said, April, let me double check that just so you don't have any complications on that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar,
Yeah,
is to kind of give people a heads up to. I love doing this type webinar every year around this time. And I'm grateful that Dr. Ashley Volion has always agreed to do this webinar for us.
no, and thank you so much for having it, Wallace. It's really needed. And like I said before doing this work, I didn't even know this type of stuff existed, so it's needed for our population.
And I know for me, I did the early voting, and that is something that was helpful for me, because I didn't have to worry about the rush or the crowd on election day. For a lot of times I just walk in, I may be there 5 minutes or to go in, and then I'll read the ballot, take me a little bit longer than that. So within another 15 or 20 minutes, I'm out of there, and but like if I take, like Dr. Ashley was mentioning, and I do a ballot beforehand, fill it out, then I can bring that with me to when I go vote. And then all I can do is find my choices, and then push the button for my choices, and then that way I can be in and out of there a lot quicker by doing that ahead of time.
And with that said, I am projecting that it'll be a really big turnout for this upcoming election just because of all the stakes in it. And so you might want to come prepared, because I know you do get that time and please do utilize it. But I don't want anyone to make a rushed vote because they got nervous or they felt rushed or the long line intimidated them or anything like that. So come prepared so you don't have any of those feelings, or um I just want each and every person to make uh an informed vote and not a rushed vote that they'll regret later.
And do you have another question, April?
Yes, I know you're gonna get tired of me asking
That's
questions.
okay. No, no, this is what we're here for.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
So my next question is, say for instance, if I'm gonna use myself as an example, I have a person, a people coming to me to ask them to assist them in doing online registration. Is that legal now or not? To
It
assist,
so how many people? Because it all depends how many people, because you can't help more than one person. And I know there is a way that you can have like a registration drive, but you have to sign up with the Secretary of State to be able to.
okay, okay. Because if we're having, say for instance, an activity in the community and we have folks to ask us, um, or to show them how to register online. We're not technically doing it for them. We're just showing them how to get to the websites in order to register online. So that sounds like if we do that, we're in violation.
If you show them where to go and what to do and they're doing it themselves, I wouldn't see that being a violation. What would most likely be a violation is that if you actually like did it for them.
Okay. I just want some clarity on that because
Yeah,
I
no,
don't want anybody to be in violation, because in the past you have people in the community, or, it can be family, friends, or whoever, or an organization that tries to help you register. I just don't want anybody to not have the proper paperwork that they need in order to do an activity like that. So any organization or whatever who wants to do a voters drive, they need to get written permission to do that, to not be in violation.
right there. And I
Okay.
can send you that form too, April, but you need to get registered with the Secretary of State.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're
And it
welcome.
and
And
it could
any
be,
other question you have, keep them coming.
yeah, and it might be a good idea if you're wanting to do some kind of community event, voter registration drive, that you reach out to your registered voters office in your parish. Maybe they could have some employees come out and assist or help. You might reach out to them to see if that's a possibility. You
Okay.
know, as long as if they had enough time. Now, if it's so close to the election, they may not do it. But if it's plenty enough time in advance, they may be willing to come out and assist or help. You can reach out and see if that's possible.
Yeah, because my concern is the elderly as well, not necessarily just a person or group of people who have a disability, because a lot of elderly people don't really have the help to even get to a site to vote.
And
That's
I was gonna say that that is my major concern as well, because it's going to be that population of people and people that are in nursing homes or other congregate settings that are going to be the most affected. So that is a valid concern.
Yeah, because I mean, putting a one person limit on, I mean, just think about that. If you have 200 people in a nursing home, and if outside of, you know, the parameters that they set, that's voter suppression, and that's limiting you from helping people that you've been helping in the past. Not everybody have somebody that's an advocate for them. and
No,
and and that that to me, that those numbers are going to show a decrease, because
mhm,
now you have to figure out who you can get to come and assist, you know, a person. It could be a husband and a wife in there. So you mean to tell me their daughter can only take care of one of they family members? That's what it sounds like to me.
no, and I agree, and I'm gonna make sure that's the case. Because I think a family member can help more than one family member, but like I said, let me double check on that because I never want to give you the wrong information, especially when it comes to this stuff. So I want to just dot my I's and cross my T's with that, but it definitely is that it definitely is a form of suppression. Um, because I receive home and community based services myself, and luckily, um, I am my employees' only clients. But if they had more than just me, that would definitely be hard to have because my family members live more than an hour away from me. So
Yeah. This is also what I have been doing too, is telling people to go and check to make sure they're still registered, because they have been purging, you know, the list or whatever, and you go in there thinking you registered and you can't vote. So I've even posted that like on my Facebook page, you know, to warn people, just because you think you're registered, you need to double check that, because you don't know what could kick you off.
right, and thank you so much for bringing that up, April. Yes, check that you're registered to vote. I did that myself, and I told my other close family members and friends to do so as well, because there is purging going on not only around the state but around the country. So please do check, especially while we still have time to register and everything else. Because again, I hate saying that this is an important election because every election is important, but this is going to be a big one. So make sure that you're registered.
So I've seen some Facebook posts too about reminding people to check their identification or their ID before they go to the polls and vote. So does you have to have a one that's not expired to be able to vote?
You do, but you can. There is an option to sign an affidavit if you forget your identification or don't have identification. So there is a way around it, and if you run into that problem, please do call us. But now that we have time, yes, Wallace, everyone should check their identification and make sure that they have their appropriate identification because I from the looks of this election, they're gonna crack down on a lot of things, so just make it easier for yourself than harder because it's not going to be easy in some cases.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're fixing to wrap it up. I want to give other people a chance if they have questions to let us know either by raising their hand or putting something in the chat box or what have you. We're at the top of the hour, so wanted to give people one more last chance to chime in if they have a question, either by chatting in the chat box or raising your hand. Uh, you know, see if there's any more questions. And I do appreciate everyone coming out for this webinar. Thank you again for attending. Thank you, Dr. Ashley Volion, for doing this presentation for us. Thank y'all all for the great questions that you asked. That's why we do these webinars.
Yes.
I am going to have the recording available on our YouTube page. Hopefully I'll have it up in the next day or two so that it'll be available if anyone needs it. Okay, do you have anything you'd like to add in closing remarks, Ashley?
Yes, thank you all for coming out today. This is my favorite webinar to do all year, because I think people do need to be informed about this stuff, because no matter what your political beliefs are, if you don't get your voice heard, you can't really complain about what's going on. So, that's just a little piece of advice that I like to keep in mind. In April, I'll get back to you shortly about your question. Because I want to make sure that everyone has the appropriate information. And if there are any questions, comments, or concerns that you think of tonight, tomorrow, maybe next week, I'm always available and always by my email box to be able to answer questions. So please sure to contact me.
All right, and
Okay.
I don't see any more hands raised and I don't see any more questions. So we will end the webinar. And thank you again, everyone, for attending. And I will send everybody a follow-up email that will have the resources or the PowerPoint from this webinar. And again, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Have a
Thank
great day.
y'all.